I'm at 5759 Toulon Ct. Doing a sanitary lateral inspection for the purchase of a home. We're mainly looking for like structural issues, root intrusion, anything that would be concerning to the buyer. Now the access point is an outside clean out just to the left of the front door. This is a slab. So the only thing about that is the bathroom should be in the center of the house. So we won't be able to, because of lack of access, there's no access in there. It's all from this clean out. So most of the time these are sweeps, which this one is. And so it only allows the camera to go out towards the main. It does not allow it to go back under the house. This is cast iron. And so another thing I always like to mention is that cast iron is, because it does rust, and you'll see a little bit of that before it switches material, but the cast iron is rough. It does rust, just the nature of the material, and so it gets rough, and so we always like to warn about using like wet wipes, paper towels, anything other than toilet paper and natural material that you're going to wash putting it down there, because it can catch on that rust and cause what they call soft clogs. And they're a little more common in cast iron because of how rough the inside of the pipes get. So you can use wet wipes, just throw them in the trash, because they don't break down like toilet paper does, and that's why toilet paper is designed that way. So that if it does catch a little bit or something, or as it goes out, it disintegrates into nothing, and so basically not much remnants of it after it's in the water long enough. And so as you can see, as we go down, it forces you to go in one direction. You can see the water flowing. Gotta make sure we can go. So as we get to the bottom, there's the cast iron, and then some stuff hanging from the roof, a little tiny bit of, those are like, I don't know if those are roots, looks like a little tiny bit of roots there, maybe from some old bushes that I believe were here, and you can see it did switch over to clay. Clay pipe is a pretty good material. There's no, age limitations on it, because of the way that it's made. There's a section about every 3 feet you'll have a connection like this, and so one of the most common things we see is, just like here, we see some root intrusion. Now this is very minor, you can see it hanging down from the top, but this is very common, and so usually what we recommend is, if it's heavy like this, it's starting to get down to the flow line, you see them hanging up, it's probably coming from the tree onto the side of the yard. We're just kind of inside what they call the drip edge of the tree, or basically how far out the branches go. It's usually about 10 feet beyond that line is what they say how far out the roots go. And so it's a very, very light amount of roots, not anything causing any, it's not causing any obstruction, but it is something that will most likely require some maintenance. So usually what you would do is you can do a cleaning initially to remove the roots, and then about once a year you put down there's a chemical called Root X that you can put down here, and what that does is kind of foams up and attaches to the roots and then burns them back a little bit, basically, so that they stop growing. But again, this is very, very common for a line of this age and material. But structurally the line looks really good. Hoping I can get all the way out to the main and then rinse the camera off a little bit. And there we are out to the main, so we'll try to get down into the water a little bit. See if we can. There we go. That looks pretty clear, I think. Well, had it clear and now I messed it all up. So I'm going to pause the video for a minute. I'm going to have some water run so that we can rinse the camera off here and kind of see how the line reacts as we pull the camera back. Okay, we do have some water running. We're just trying to wait for the water to get down there where hopefully we can get it all rinsed off in here. You can see we're looking down into the main, but sometimes when the line's flat it takes a while for the water to get all the way out. There it goes. So we're going to try to rinse this off here with all this water going through. There we go. And so yeah, you can see it dropping into the main. Okay. Pull back here. Make sure we can get all this rinsed off. But I'd say overall the line looks really good structurally. Of course you do have some root intrusion, which you can see there. We saw on the way out. Now you are off the property at this point. It would take a while, probably 20 feet or so before you're back up onto the property. Actually, probably a lot more than that. I think the main is across the street, based off of the footage. But again, the line does look pretty good structurally. I haven't seen anything, any kind of breaks or cracks in the line. Again, like I mentioned, the roots get in because there's a lot of connections. There's one about every 3 feet. And what that does too is, over the years, it's like a male and female connection, and they're kind of like a bell on one end, and the other end just fits into it. And so they would pack like a mortar or whatever around it. Over the years, that mortar and stuff can shrink, and then It allows little tiny finger roots to start getting in through those little tiny cracks, because there's nothing they like more than water and fertilizer all in one place. Again, this is some really minor root intrusion like this. I think if you put some root X down, it would get rid of that kind of stuff. But there's just a little bit on the walls where it's kind of started to grow down the side once it gets in, because it gets in at the joints, like I mentioned, right there. So that's at 40 feet. And so it gets in at those joints. And as long as you maintain it on a regular basis, you do something like those yearly chemical treatments or cleaning every few years, it tends to work out pretty well as far as keeping those roots, you know, at bay, so that they don't get big enough to cause any issues or break the pipe or block the line. But most of this line looks really, really good. So the worst one is right here at 23 feet. I think this was the worst one. Oops. So you can see how it's not blocking any flow right now. And it'll just get pushed out of the way a little bit, but that grows much longer. It's starting to reach down into the flow line, and it can start catching debris. You can see little pieces of toilet paper that are on the end of it already. And so this is something you might want to have cleaned, just to make sure. Here's another one similar, just a lot less roots. At about 20 feet. A little bit more here. See, a little bit of an offset there where they were trying to get a turn into it. And this is the transition right here. You see, this is the transition between the cast iron and the clay. And this is where we're turning up to go vertical, basically. And see in the bottom left-hand corner the angle that the camera is sitting at. And so we are back out of the clean out. And so the line looked really good structurally. Didn't find any structural issues as far as breaks or even low spots in the line. It all looked really good. It does have some root intrusion. It's really at the point now where you may not even really be able to do much for a cleaning. You could do a chemical treatment like the Root X I mentioned. A lot of times a cleaning at this point, and jetting might get it, but it's kind of overkill for those amount of roots. you might be able to do like a chemical treatment to lead it off, and then maybe once a year after that, put some Rudex down there or something similar. And then after about 5 years, I'd recommend doing another inspection just to kind of check the root growth and see if it's progressed at all, or if you need to, or if you can, modify the maintenance schedule if necessary. But structurally, the line looks great. So that'll end the inspection at 5759 Toulon Court in Dayton, Ohio.